All right, welcome back to another episode of Price of Purpose. Man, what a journey this has already been. I'm excited about the topic. We're episode 8 today, and today we're talking about the funeral of a dreamer. So excited for you guys to join us, be challenged, be pushed. I'm excited for our conversation. I'm going to pray for us, and then we'll jump into the quote before we get started. Jesus, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the moment we are in. We are not promised tomorrow. We are but a mist and a vapor. I pray that we'd be mindful of the time we have here on earth so that we can make the most of it, that we can treat it as the precious gift it is and not something that we can just spend with unlimited power. Pray that you give us wisdom and discernment as we seek you and we challenge ourselves to look more and more like you and less like ourselves. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. All right, today's quote, it is a good one, and I'm looking forward to the conversation it's going to create today. And the quote goes like this: "The hardest funerals I've ever been to were for those who were still very much alive." That's hard to swallow.
What do you mean whenever you think of very much alive? Like, what does that mean to you?
I think it means, for me, it means in the most basic sense that we see ourselves on a day-to-day basis, what we can see, touch, smell, and hear. It's the system and the surroundings of people and feedback, our culture, that tell us what is good and what isn't, and that we are simply alive here to wake up, do our things throughout the day that seem productive, and then go to sleep only to wake up to do it all over again. We're alive physically, but there is a huge difference between being alive physically and not having peace day in and day out to actually feel like you were a part of something bigger.
Right, I got you. So it's like I don't know, like I think of my grandpa was and is probably the strongest man I know. I mean, he was 70 years old, revving up the go-kart, the 20-year-old go-kart, and he, you know what I mean? So like he, when he developed some kind of like cyst on his brain, and I remember watching him get out of the car holding a cane, and it was like, he's got so much life left, man. Like that, like it broke me seeing my grandpa just step out of that car with a cane, and it was like, I don't know, it just, it's scary because I know how much life he really has left to live.
Yeah. So I know your grandpa, and it very much invested and involved with grandkiddos, hanging out with you guys when you're younger, still us being super young and getting the go-kart going fishing, all that stuff. Have you, like myself, I've noticed, have you seen the correlation between people that love hanging out with kids in their older age and the quality of their excitement in life?
It's hard to relate to a kid. Like, it's really hard to, because you know, as an adult, we're thinking about adult things. So when we look at these kids, we're still looking at this kid through our adult lenses. And I feel like for myself, at least, in the moments that I spend like with my nephew or just kids in general, even when I worked at the church, I really feel like there's a part of that when I let go of the burdens I was carrying for that moment just to interact with this kid or whatever, that's whenever we really connected. And it's almost like a reminder of what's actually important.
Yeah.
It's that call. I feel like it's that call back to that childlike faith, that wonder, that curiosity that I feel like we grow numb to as we get older. You know what I mean?
100%. And that's why I think it's so intriguing about how Jesus interacted with kids in his ministry and about how we have to have childlike faith. Because I believe naivety, if that's even how you say that, naivety is an important piece about even being able to be exposed to miracles. Miracles don't make sense to our system, an earthly mindset.
Right.
And to be open to that idea and believe that they can happen, you have to let go of the restrictions that we seem to get so caught up on as we move through our life as adults, which really brings us to the big question we have for section 1 here. And it says, what's the quietest way someone gives up on themselves?
I think that's it right there. I think it's, you just get burdened. Well, I mean, you could list off a number of things. You could say failure. You could say the people you're surrounded with.
100%,
you could say what relates to me the most. And I feel like I really did keep a lot of my imagination intact through most of my upbringing, which was a challenge because it wasn't encouraged. But there was something inside me that really like kept pushing for that. And it was to ask more questions, to experience different things. And it led to a lot of resistance like between me and my parents.
Yeah.
But I don't think I ever lost that. But when it started to fade, it was because I was letting the burdens of being an adult cloud that imagination.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that came from I remember watching Gary V, you know.
Oh yeah, love that cat.
His biggest thing is fail, like get over failure, get through it. And so he was one of the first influencers I latched onto. So I developed that pretty early of building that healthy relationship with failure. So failure doesn't affect me as much as I do see it in other people. For me, it was my circle that I was surrounding myself with of non-dreamers. So whenever this podcast that we're doing right now is my 4th podcast idea. All 3 of the other ones I pitched to my old circle, and they would tell me things like, I don't know if anybody would watch that. Like, I don't know if anybody would. Is that a good enough concept? Killed my dream, you know? So when you let other people's failures predict your future, those are not the people you want in your circle.
100%.
Just because you failed in that thing doesn't mean I'm going to fail in that.
100%. And you can love them and still encourage them. But as soon as you believe what they're telling you, it builds a wall and a boundary. It makes your world black and white of what can and cannot happen. You know, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right. And that is the scary piece about letting only the things we can see, touch, smell, and feel define what our reality is. God is supernatural. He is very creative. He has an amazing imagination. And once again, if we look at this life as through a lens and from a perspective that we get to spend it at will, risk-free, knowing what's coming in the end, it will change everything we think about as limitations. So one of the quietest ways that we do give up on ourselves is letting ourselves be pushed into a smaller and smaller box because of pain, failure like you talked about, relationships not going the way we want them to, believing limiting factors about ourselves. We have a God that created the universe and He created us, and to simply believe things about us that go in direct contradiction to who He says we are, if you think about it the way I just laid it out, that's insanity that I have done that to myself in my life, to believe things that go directly against the Creator and who He says I am.
What are the things you see whenever you look at somebody that tells you that they gave up?
I see that they have believed and bought in 100% to the system that the world offers them.
What do you mean?
I mean, if you think about it, from a very early age, depending on how you're raised, whatever it is, you have a short window to be carefree, be a child, explore, and be imaginative. Use that imagination to dream these different things. But then you are pushed to say, hey, you must pick at a certain age, dive into that one area of your life, stay consistent and committed to it, and do that for the rest of your life to provide X, Y, and Z. It's very rigid, very much limiting. And now if you do that, you pick your thing and you're blessed enough to say, I pick the thing that I feel like God made me to do, and I get to do that every single day. You're in that situation where I've heard many times influencers talk about, if you do something you love, you'll never have to work a day in your life. Right. And it is 100% true. But typically, we focus on what can pay us the most and what looks the most successful to everybody else on this same plane of existence that I'm on right now. That is a very limiting factor. You know, the Bible talks about being able to one day stand before God, have a recounting of our lives, and that there's potential crowns for our actions here on earth. You know, my hope is that I simply get to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. You know, that's my goal. But the fact that God has set it up, I mean, he's the one that orchestrated this whole deal to say, I might potentially also receive crowns because of my efforts and commitment to his design of what this life is and not what the world's telling me. That's game changer.
Yeah.
And when I believe in something like that, the fact that it's so easy today to be a hero to the people around you, I mean, think about it. I mean, we've seen this. You pitch 3 ideas to a podcast, somebody else. We link up and we both have the same idea. And here we are trying to walk through something ourselves and bring in people to open their eyes to something bigger, to literally help us all see a purpose for our lives that transcends money, career, titles, all of those things that will last for an eternity.
That's good.
And so you brought that up to me, and I was in the same boat. We were able to bump into somebody else that believed enough to say, hey, we have broken out of what everybody else says is not a good idea. It doesn't fit into the norm. And we are getting to enjoy the fruits of facing things that 99% of people are too scared to face. And the reason I say that, I don't mean to put anybody down. I'm not trying to condemn anybody. The reason I know that is because I have done that so many times myself. Looked that fear in the eyes and tucked tail and ran the other way as fast as I could.
So you just got to find somebody as crazy as you are.
100%. And if you think about it, that's what Jesus was. I mean, his whole ministry was, he didn't receive any form of consistent payment. He was basically homeless, and he spent most of his time on people that were deemed unworthy, to not be considered. And he let everybody know that you have to have the faith of a child, so that you do not have the limitations of what you think can't be done.
That's good.
I mean, Jesus was risen 3 days later after being crucified. None of that defines or fits in the definition of our world anyways. Right. What he came to accomplish is not a natural order of things. So the fact that we try to fit into a natural order of this world, being supernatural beings ourselves, if we truly believe that eternity is coming on the other end, it should change our perspective and the value of our time that we do have while we're here. And it does for me, it does for you. I know we've talked about it, but focusing on those things more than we focus on the limitations of this world will give us the inspiration, the courage to jump out of what is seen as typical or seen as, prudent and, good advice. One of the best piece of advice I've ever been given is live like you're going to die tomorrow, but plan like you're going to live 100 years. I'm not saying that you can't be consistent in planning and be mindful of those things and being strategic about what you're doing. We are called to be good stewards, but to be dreamers and not put limitations on those things so that you can see those miraculous moments happen is huge. And touching on that point about how easy it is to be a hero for somebody. When you've got people that feel like they don't have any purpose, they don't matter more than what their job provides and how much money they make and all that stuff, and you can come alongside them and say, hey, I've got some ideas for you to chew on. I believe you can do bigger things and be defined by much bigger things than just how much you make. Suddenly you give somebody a lifeline of hope to say, hey, my time here on earth can matter more than what I wake up and just accomplish every day.
Yeah.
And that's how you can become a hero to somebody, to say, hey, I'll support you. I'll listen to your dreams. And just by doing that little thing, you can be heroic in somebody's life.
Well, and you don't even have to necessarily see the vision. Like, to expect somebody else to see the things that you're seeing in your mind is absurd.
Yeah.
Because people need the tangible evidence of whatever it is, but you at least need the people that say, I trust that you're going to make the best decision for you. But you also got to, those people also have to pull out the version of you that is best for your family. So it goes beyond you. Mm-hmm. It's not just your buddy that's like your hype man that's encouraging you to take another shot. Like that's not that kind of friend. The kind of friend that is really trying to pull out the best version of you.
Yes.
The version of you that your family deserves.
100%.
Those are the people. So you talked about one end where people are so career driven that they're focused on money, they're focused on building their status or whatever. I also see it from the complete opposite side. The people that are so passive and they have no authority, no urgency. To me, that's a big sign that they gave up because they're just letting life drag them through life.
100. Yeah, so that they don't even have an earthly goal. You're right. Especially if they have something like what we're talking about. If you ask, most times, if you ask whether they are driven in an earthly goal because it's expected of them, or they're even struggling with being directed in something that's even an earthly goal because they're just, like I said, paralyzed by fear and overwhelmed by the fact that it's not producing any peace or purpose in their life. If you ask those two groups, what would you do if money was no option? 9 times out of 10, they would say, I would work with kids, or I would work with the homeless, or I would work with the sick, or I would do mission trips, or I would teach a class on how to make crafts, or I would be a woodworker and create special gifts for somebody to send them out.
Which is beautiful because it really does show like people have that desire to serve somebody else.
And at the end of the day, you don't have to make the jump to where you give up a job and go do that 100%. At least do that in your spare time to fulfill that belief in yourself of saying, I can do this, I can enjoy this, and I'm going to be intentional about learning new skills, doing something that fills my cup up so that when I do go to work, I am kind and considerate to people. Because I'm believing in myself. I'm taking care of myself as well. And when I do that, I can now reflect that habit and take care of the people around me.
Yeah.
It really does pour in. And then one day it could potentially replace that standard job that is expected of you to have. And you do have a source of income that people may not understand. They don't get how you're able to sell, a bazillion widgets on Etsy that you create custom in your home. But you've created out of your passion and your skill set enough people interested in that product that fills your cup, and they get the benefit of enjoying your work.
What I see is there's 2 kinds of business people. The ones that are in service of themselves and the ones that are in service for others. Mm-hmm. Are you going into this with the purpose of serving others, or are you going in for status? Because if you're going in for status, you're going to come up unfulfilled every single time.
And the quickest way to slowly die inside. You're right, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But serving others, that's the most job security you need.
Yes.
Everybody needs to be served.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that helps us when we're serving other people is that, you could be laying in bed and think, man, I got a busy day at work tomorrow. But don't let it stop there. Think about, hey, even though I got a busy day, I'm looking forward to following up with Jack because last night or tonight, he's going home to do a new prayer idea with his wife and his kids and stretching himself to pray with his family. Because at work, we've been challenging each other in our prayer life, and now he's wanting to extend that to his family and grow in that area. And when we look at those ideas and think about something bigger than ourselves, as you pointed to, it gives us that bigger sense of purpose, and we're not limiting ourselves to the constraints of, well, I just got to wake up, go to work, and come home and just check off my responsibilities.
Yeah. When
that's the ceiling of your purpose, no wonder kids, don't have that limiting thing, and it's fun to hang out with kids. They think, man, I could be an astronaut. I could go land on the moon. I could do all these different pieces. And that's how you keep yourself from dying inside, by focusing on and being intentional to those bigger pieces outside yourself.
Well, and I think that's one of the saddest things right there too, is when people talk about doing all this change, putting in all this work, but then you come back the next day after they said they were going to have this family talk. I'm not saying that's what's happening.
Yeah.
But I've seen that with my friends, and particularly friends I'm not really friends with anymore because this was part of the reason. But people that said, oh, I know I need to get this under control. I need to get my emotions under control. And then they turn around and don't fix anything. Or they come back the next day after they said they were going to do something. I'm calling myself out too in other ways.
Yeah.
You got to be a man of your word. You got to be somebody where your word means something.
Yes.
And so another way I see people give up on that is they let fear or whatever overrule their pursuit of trying to be a better version of themselves.
Dude, 100% fear is one of the worst things. It's the most impactful thing I feel that deters us from reaching that purpose we were created for. And it is something that, you know, in our own lives, you know, that may be a situation where you have to start loving that person from a distance. Hey, I'm still here. I care about you. But now I'm moving on to, I don't want those limiting beliefs spoken into me. And if you want to be challenged and you want to have encouragement and somebody walk alongside you, I'm here when you're ready to make that step. And you keep pursuing and finding those people and surrounding yourself with those people that are facing those fears.
Yeah.
So that you're not keeping yourself in that box. And sometimes you just have to do it alone. You have to make that next jump. You go to that next level and then just see who's there that you could potentially lean on. And as the Bible says, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, that you can walk alongside of to keep encouraging you to face your own fears.
Well, that's something, dude. I was raised with it was a common quote in our household, but family is blood. It took me a long time to realize family can extend outside of that.
100%.
If your blood family doesn't support you, there is a family of people, maybe not in one group as convenient as that might be, but you have, from experience, you can build your own family outside of the family that you were born into.
Yeah.
And that family that you build, that's the group of guys I work with right now. They all grew up in similar fashion that I did. So we all have this kind of pull towards each other to where we just understand each other.
Yeah.
But being surrounded by these guys who are all chasing their passions, they're fueled by their purpose every day. Being surrounded by these guys, man, I don't have a choice to not chase mine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You're confronted with it. Yeah.
Because there's that urgency of, yes, I love these guys. I know they love me back. In order to maintain this relationship, I have to keep up.
Yeah.
And I'm not, because I know we can talk about comparison and all that, but if the comparison if the people you're comparing yourself to are drawing out that better version of you,
yeah,
that's the goal.
100%. And that's where you go from just believing without even having evidence to now you believe because you're seeing it executed around you.